Okay, good. Great. So very, very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Subhadramati, and I'm here in the London Buddhist Centre large shrine room. And yeah, particularly warm welcome if you're joining us for the first time. I'm always delighted when people are here for the first time. And if you are here for the first time, yeah, maybe just say hello and say, I'm here for the first time. I'd love to hear from you. And also really warm welcome to everyone who's been following our retreat right from the beginning. You're allowed to say hello as well. As a matter of fact, everybody can say hello, whether you're new or old or in between. So I'm here with Ippolit and Sanjay. They're the team for this evening, doing all the technical stuff. And I get the pleasure of just sitting here and meditating with you. So really warm welcome. So we'll be starting in 2 or 3 minutes. Actually, where's my clock? Well, here it is. But yeah, we just say hello just now. Don't know how many people are here, Ippolit.
Yeah, so we've got around 40 people.
40 people already.
Numbers are going up. And Sajana is saying hello. Lindsay is saying hello.
Right.
Chloe from the Isle of Wight.
Oh yeah, Chloe's been here every day. Yeah.
Hello is from Herefordshire. Simon from Sydney.
Yeah, great. Hello, everyone. I'm hearing all your names. Simon, Eloise. Anyone here for the first time? Or anyone just joined us for the first time for this retreat? Do say hello. That would be really nice.
We've got Maria from Homerton. Felicity is saying she's really enjoying the retreat.
Oh,
so
great. That's great, Felicity. Good.
We've got Dee in Kentish Town. Sajana is reminding us that it's his birthday.
Okay, yes, we've said happy birthday to Sajana. Actually, I worked out, maybe if it's your birthday to say, because I worked out if there's 1,000 people on the retreat, it must be at least a few people's birthday every day. That could be a new thing in our Slack group, birthday cake pictures.
We've got Nina from NYC as always.
Oh yeah, hello Nina from New York City, great.
Olive in Brighton, Julie in Crediton.
Places I haven't even heard of. Really, really good to see you.
We have 65 people with
That's
us
marvelous. Great. Good. Good. So welcome if you've just joined. So I'm Subhadramati, sitting in the large shrine room of the London Buddhist Centre. And Ippolit and Sanjay are sort of manning the computers and stuff behind the scenes. So very nice to be about to spend the evening with you. We'll be starting in, just a minute or so now. Good.
We've got Graham tuning in from north of Italy. He's been also...
Oh, yes. Yeah, welcome again. Is it Graham? Graham from the north of Italy, yeah. Great, good.
And Karuna Vajra saying hi as well.
Oh, hi, Karuna Vajra, my old friend. Very nice. Good. Yeah, do keep saying hello to me, to each other. I really feel more, every day I feel that we're creating more of a sense of community. And if you're new, really, really warm welcome. We want to really welcome you into, just into the atmosphere here at the Buddhist Centre. I feel that even though we're online, we're creating that very strongly. And every day's contributing to that in so many ways, actually.
So we have around 100 people with us, and Adam and Richie are saying hi as well, and Anastasia from Holland.
Oh, Anastasia, hello, Adam and Richie. Okay, so I think we're at 7 now. So maybe we will make a proper sort of official start, as it were. So just again for the benefit of people who've just joined, I'm Subhadramati. I've probably met many of you already, but just in case you haven't met me, that's who I am. And So I'm taking this evening, and we're in the large shrine room at the London Buddhist Centre, which is looking really beautiful. And actually, I'm sorry that you can't smell the scents of the flowers and the incense. It's very, very lovely sitting here. Just sitting in the atmosphere of this shrine where so many thousands and thousands of people have meditated over the years. So many of you, if not most of you, will be here as part of our retreat. So lots and lots of people are on the retreat. If you're not on our home retreat, it's not too late to sign up. We're about maybe a third of the way through our retreat, and you can just sign up and join in. The whole thing's free. If you sign up, you get lots of extra things. We'll send you the link for our morning meditations and all sorts of chat groups and so on. So it's not too late to sign up for our retreat. And I'm been delighted to just discover how many people have really thrown themselves into the whole of this retreat. Some people, of course, it's a retreat. Some people are working as hard as ever, if not harder, and are sort of including being on the retreat in their ordinary work and family life. Some people have been able to take the week off work, or perhaps are furloughed from work, and have, are doing the whole retreat, are doing everything on the retreat. And of course, it's a difficult time for many of us. A stressful time, a time of fear, and a time of actual suffering, if we know people who are ill or even people who have died. So I just want to say what a great response to that difficult, the difficult time to come on retreat. But then, of course, I want to say as well that coming on a retreat is in itself emotionally stirring, especially if you've never been on a retreat before, or even if you have. Sometimes it can be surprising when we meditate several times a day to find actually meditation is quite a stirring thing. It's quite a challenging thing. It can be emotionally stirring. One person was saying this morning in the morning meditation that, when they sit down to meditate, they just find themselves in tears. And I was just, just really encouraging that person and everyone that actually, although that might feel uncomfortable and even painful, it's a positive sign. It's a sign of, meditation in a sense working. I know myself before I meditated, now when I look back, I can see I was very sort of emotionally blinkered. I was within a very narrow range of my emotions. And what meditation did was sort of open that up. So I felt my joys more joyfully, but also my sorrows more sadly. So meditation does open us up. But also what meditation does is it makes us a bigger person. It makes us a bigger mind so that we can contain all that. So we can have confidence in that feelings that we might feel of sadness or fear or whatever, they just want to be felt. And we can just be confident that, we can sit with them and it'll be okay. Yeah. And it's not that anything's gone wrong if that's happening. That is, that's what being on retreat does. It sort of touches those depths in us. So really, really encouragement to just stay with that, to keep coming, to keep joining in the smaller groups in the morning. That'll mean you'll be able to, just talk about whatever experiences you're having. Of course, some of you will be having very joyful experiences as well. And that's great as well. There'll be the whole range, especially with 1,000 of us on the retreat, there'll be the whole range. So that's by way of a general introduction. So I just want to say a little bit about the format of the evening. So the evening format is I'm going to be speaking for a bit, and the subject of this evening is mindfulness, the Buddhist meaning of mindfulness. So I'll talk for a bit, and then we'll actually meditate. We'll practice some mindfulness, a breathing practice. And then we'll have a tea break for about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and I'll say just a little bit more. And then it'll be a chance for questions from you and hopefully responses from me. I'll try my best to respond to anything that you bring. And then we'll end with a short ritual, and then we'll be finished by 9 o'clock this evening. So that's the shape of our evening. So I hope that sounds good. And yeah, all the time, Ipalit and Sanjay will be like just keep and letting me know how many people are with us and so on. So I'm going to ask Ipalit now how many people are with us.
175 people.
175 people. That's great, actually. It's lovely just to imagine all of you out there in your various situations in all different parts of the country and Europe and beyond. Yeah. So that's really good. I'm going to read you something to begin with. Okay, so I'm going to read you something. I'm not really going to say much about it, but I am going to say a bit more about it after tea. But I thought I'd like to start with it. My eyes are almost burned by what I see. There's a bowl in front of me that wasn't there before. A brown button bowl, and in it some apricots, some oranges, some nuts, cherries, a banana. I'm entranced by the colour. I lift an orange into the flat, filthy palm of my hand and feel and smell and lick it. The colour orange, the colour, my God, the colour orange. I cannot eat this fruit. I will not eat this fruit. I sit in quiet joy, so complete, beyond the meaning of joy. My soul finds its own completeness in that bowl of colour, the forms of each fruit, the shape and curl and bend, all so rich, so perfect. I want to bow before it, loving that blazing, roaring orange colour. It is there in that tiny bowl, the world recreated in that broken bowl. I feel the smell of each fruit leaping into me and lifting me and carrying me away. I am drunk with something that I understand but cannot explain. I am filled with a sense of love. What I have waited and longed for has, without my knowing, come to me and taken all of me. So I hope you find that as beautiful as I do. And I'm not going to say anything more about that or even why I'm reading it now, but I am after in the second half of the class. I wanted to start with that. And also I wanted to start with something else slightly unusual for the format of these evenings. Usually I just start off by talking, or the leader starts off by talking. But actually, I'm going to start off with a little quiz, and you have to write your answers in the chat box, and Ipali is going to say them to me and until somebody gets the right answer. Maybe somebody will get the right answer straight away. So here's the quiz. So who knows what were the last words of the Buddha? Answers in the chat box, please. Evelyn's grinning at me. So what were the last words of the Buddha? Any answers yet?
Not yet.
Yeah. Sanjay can see something.
Maybe mine's happening quicker.
Lots
of people.
Yes, we have winners. Mark was the first one to say with mindfulness strive on.
Okay, the prize goes to Mark. With mindfulness strive on. Actually, there was I don't know, even for sort of extra points, the Buddha said something just before with mindfulness strive on. Does anyone know what that was? That was the second part of the phrase. Did you get that, or shall I tell you?
That seems to be a bit more difficult.
Is that a bit more difficult? Okay, I'll tell you. You can be forgiven for that. So The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. With mindfulness, strive on. So they were the last words of the Buddha. And very, very interesting what someone's last words are. We can imagine that, well, the Buddha knew that he was about to pass away. He had full knowledge of that. He had already told his disciples that he was preparing to pass away. So presumably he knew that these would be his last words. And also, when you think about, someone's last words, they're very, very carefully remembered. So we can probably be as sure as we can be that these really were the last words of the Buddha, because the disciples would have especially remembered them because of being the Buddha's last words. Our own teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita, died just a year or so ago. And of course, we remember very clearly the last things he said, the last things he wrote. They start to carry a special import, don't they? The words of your teacher, for example, the words of the Buddha for the disciples of the Buddha. With mindfulness, strive on. Good. So that's our subject for this evening, mindfulness. What do we mean by mindfulness? But I'm going to sort of throw this back to you again, and I'm going to ask you, what does mindfulness mean? And I kind of want one-word answers, or else the chat box will get too full, yeah? So I'd like to, if you could give me one-word responses. If I say to you, which I am saying, what is mindfulness? So fire away with your answers, and Ippolite's going to call them out to me, or maybe Ippolite and Sanjay in chorus. Awareness. Presence. Awake, yeah. Open.
Now.
Okay. Presence again. Truth, okay.
Awareness. Presence. Alertness. Truthful integration, awareness, a lot of awareness.
Clarity,
attention, focus.
Okay, clarity, attention, focus. Yeah.
Peace, fluidity, growth.
Peace, fluidity, growth. Okay, so this all sounds excellent.
Focused, sensitivity, connected, truth.
Focus, sensitivity, connected, truth. Okay, just time for one or two more.
Freedom, thoughtfulness, control.
Freedom, thoughtfulness, control. Okay, great. So we had a lot of awareness. I think we had attentiveness, didn't we? Lots more. Okay. Did anyone say vigilance?
Yes, yeah.
Who said vigilance?
Leone.
Good, Leone. So, well, good everyone. But why I'm particularly picking out this vigilance is when the Buddha said, with mindfulness strive on, he used a particular word for mindfulness. There's lots of words for mindfulness in Buddhism, a bit like the Eskimos have lots of words for snow, I guess. And one of the words is apramada. And that was the word. When the Buddha said, with mindfulness strive on, he said, with apramada strive on. And apramada is vigilance. So I thought it was quite important to bring this in. I want to talk about mindfulness in at least 3 different ways this evening. I didn't know if anyone would say vigilance, but I'm pleased that Leone and maybe others did, because that's an aspect of mindfulness that maybe doesn't come so readily to us when we think about mindfulness. Well, vigilance is the best translation we've got for this word, apramada. If you were actually to try and translate it, it'd be something like the least amount of drunkenness. Yeah. So this word apramada, this particular aspect of mindfulness, is the least amount of drunkenness. And I was thinking, well, I don't know about you, but we've probably all done like foolish things when we're drunk or intoxicated in any way. we can be intoxicated in so many ways, can't we? Just by actual substances. But just I mean, I know myself, I just tend to get excitable. I tend to get a bit blasé. And in those moods, I'm not very careful. So this vigilance is a kind of guarding against being taken unawares, and especially guarding against just doing something silly or doing something that we regret. As a matter of fact, I think, I was caught unawares like this myself even earlier today, talking to a friend, just wasn't vigilant enough. I didn't kind of say or do anything bad, but I just wasn't sensitive enough to them. I should have, in retrospect, I wish I had, before the conversation, I thought, no, what's likely to happen here if you don't have your wits about you? But I didn't do that. And what was likely to happen did happen. And then I'm like, oh no, I messed it up. Yeah. So I imagine you possibly recognize that when you just haven't, it's that sort of not being on your guard, because this is a very active aspect of mindfulness. It's about being on your guard for what might go wrong, as it were, particularly where you might make a mistake, hurt someone's feelings. So it's that kind of vigilance, because then, and why is the Buddha so keen that we guard against that? Well, just because the consequences, just out of foolishness, you can do something that then has got quite big consequences for someone else or for yourself. Just like, if you were actually drunk, you go and do something and, it can have quite big consequences for someone else and for yourself. So this aspect of vigilance, this least amount of drunkenness, is an important aspect of mindfulness. From the point of view of the Buddha, I sometimes kind of think, if the Buddha, as it were, it's not really that the Buddha's up in the sky looking down at us, of course. The Buddha's not a god or anything like that. But, if I imagine that, sometimes I think the Buddha must be thinking, oh goodness, like there they are, like sort of drunk again, being foolish again, kind of messing up, not out of sort of badness, but just through not being vigilant enough, falling into the same old mistakes, causing the same sort of trouble. So this apramada aspect of mindfulness is trying to have the least amount of drunkenness. It's quite interesting, isn't it? It doesn't say no drunkenness at all. It sort of shows that unenlightened, we're always going to have some amount of drunkenness, as it were. But how can we have the least amount of drunkenness? So it's active. It's a sort of mindfulness that guards us, that sort of saves us from ourselves. It's a sort of mindfulness that saves us from ourselves. Yeah. So vigilance. Now, a lot of people, I think, said awareness as well. So this is another aspect of mindfulness. And the aspect of this awareness in a particular way that I want to talk about, and it's awareness of purpose. Often we kind of think of mindfulness as something like, I don't know, being in the moment or something like that. I kind of know what people mean when they say that, but actually mindfulness has to also include a sense of being able to look forward and look back as well. It has to have a sense of learning from the past and also looking forward in the sense of having a direction to our lives. Yeah. So this aspect of mindfulness, this awareness, the Buddhist word, if you're interested, is samprajnana, is like the ability not to get sidetracked, a sort of clarity about what we're doing and why. I mean, it's just so easy to get sidetracked, isn't it? And not, we're prone to it in our own minds, but everyone wants us to get sidetracked. Every time something, some advert pops up on our screen that is geared, totally to us. That is somebody, as it were, trying to get our attention, trying to sidetrack us. In a way, it's only their job. You can't blame them for that. But everybody sort of wants our mind more and more these days. So this is the kind of mindfulness that's about keeping possession of your own mind. That's about sort of setting your purpose and knowing why you've set that purpose, and then sort of galvanizing yourself around that purpose so that you can actually follow through. Very, very hard, isn't it? Well, I find to follow through with things. I'm the sort of person temperamentally that sort of leaves a little trail behind me of kind of unfinished things. Even sort of ordinary household life. But also that can be true of our lives as a whole. We can suddenly wake up and think, God, how did I end up here in this job, with this person, with this whatever? And you realize, you sort of look back and you think, I didn't really intend that, but I just, by sort of circumstances, by sort of pushes and pulls, we're sort of swayed around. And sometimes we end up, leading the life we never really meant to lead in a way. So this sort of aspect of awareness, of purpose, is important if we want to sort of take possession of our lives and lead our life. It's a sort of directionality to life. And I was thinking about this in a more poetic way this afternoon. I was looking on the Slack group. Do join the Slack group if you haven't already. It's one of the little sections is people's shrines. And I thought actually a shrine gives us a directionality, in a number of ways. So we've got a shrine here. Obviously, it gives us a very strong image of what human potential is. That's what the figure of the Buddha is. As I said, the Buddha is not a god or anything like that. It's a symbol for a fully fulfilled human life that, in a way, is so fulfilled, it's sort of gone beyond what we even imagine as humanly possible. That's why the figure, here is larger than life and gold and so on. So it gives us a directionality that way. But also I was thinking quite simply, it's at the front of the room. It's a focus to the room. And then when I was looking at people's pictures of their shrines, very, very touching, just to see people creating a focus for their practice. And as people were even saying that, like somebody said, oh, this is my favorite part of my room now. And also what I noticed were people sort of investing in their shrine. Like some people, had bought new sort of adornments for their shrine. People were, going out and picking flowers and so on and making the shrine as beautiful as they could. And I thought that's a lovely poetic way of setting our direction, taking what we most value, this ideal of human growth and potential, and adorning it and putting it in a sort of particular, even prominent place in our room, and then facing it when we meditate. So that's all that aspect of mindfulness as well. Sort of setting our course and knowing why we're going in that direction and knowing how to go in that direction, what we're doing, why. Yeah. So we've had vigilance, we've had awareness, and now we're going to go into attentiveness. And I think probably this attentiveness is what we usually think of when we think of mindfulness, a sort of quality of consciousness. It's interesting, it's both a quality of consciousness, again, as represented by the Buddha, but it's also our efforts towards that. Mindfulness is a practice, as well as a fruit or practice. And what do I want to say about attentiveness? What attentiveness means being as attentive as closely as we can to our actual experience before we add on interpretation and story to that experience. What we commonly do is we just, something happens, I don't know, hundreds of examples. You walk into a room, you see somebody, and you think they haven't smiled at you, or they haven't, and then you immediately think, oh my goodness, they don't like me anymore, or maybe that text I sent them upset me, We immediately go into a whole story. I imagine if I was here in the room with you, I'd be getting you to nod your heads, but I'm sure you recognize that. We go into this whole story. And because we do that, we sort of live in a world of half-truths, yeah? Something happens, and then we interpret it according to our own biases, according to our own sort of previous conditioning, and then it starts to create a world, and it sort of starts to create then a self-fulfilling world, doesn't it? Because then you think, oh, well, if they're annoyed with me, well, actually, I'm not going to smile back at them, blah, blah, blah. And then before we know, we've made the whole thing sort of come true. And then we go, oh, yeah, that just proved it. I knew that, they didn't really like me, So by adding on interpretation, we live in a world of half-truths. We also, by adding on interpretation, another way, we sort of frighten ourselves as well, don't we? We tell ourselves a story like, I don't know, like you wake up in the morning a bit tired, you think, oh God, like I'm never going to, last till this evening. Or you wake up on a Monday a bit tired, you think, oh God, how am I going to get through the week? Or you think, oh God, like how am I going to get through this lockdown? So you project onto the future a sort of an imaginary thing, and then you call it, how am I going to do this? And that just frightens ourselves. The most moving story I heard in regard to this is by a friend of mine, a very wonderful Buddhist teacher called Vidya, who you might even have heard of. She's written a number of books about mindfulness for working with pain and illness. And she's someone who suffers from severe pain herself. And her real aha moment came many years ago. She was in hospital. She was in very, very severe pain. And she was saying to herself, I'm never going to get through the night. I'm never going to get through the night. And she was just, really distressed and frightened by that thought. And then she suddenly realized, actually, I don't need to think like this because the present moment is always bearable. She said, I just need to think of this moment. And then the next moment, she just needed to think of the next moment. And in that way, it's like you come back to yourself. You just think, oh, what is happening right now? The present moment is always bearable. So we don't have to start frightening ourselves. We can, if we practice this kind of mindfulness, this attentiveness to what's actually happening now in our actual experience, our actual, what we feel with our senses, including our mind in a way, but more including our mind just in a way of almost the bare sensation of our mind, rather than these stories and interpretation. Then actually we'd live a much fuller and richer life. And if we do that even more deeply, then we touch into the mystery of life. I was talking to someone a few days ago in one of the little groups, and I think, it sounded like he had touched into that mystery where he said he was practicing mindfulness and meditation. All discursive thought just naturally dropped away. You can't force that to go away, but it can naturally drop away. All the stories dropped away. and he just talked about it as a sort of feeling of fullness and mystery, and it was obviously very, very positive. And yeah, that so we can, if we go deeply enough, we can enter that mystery. But even before that, we can just have a much richer life and a more true life. Actually, somebody talked about mindfulness as truth, actually, and I think it is. It's that truth without interpretation. So what we're going to do is that aspect of mindfulness is what we practice when we practice the mindfulness of breathing. Practicing the mindfulness of breathing will also bring about those other aspects, the aspect of vigilance and the aspect of sort of awareness of purpose. But it will directly help us to experience that attentiveness. So in the mindfulness of breathing, if you're new to that, we're simply following our breath with our awareness. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you in a practice of the mindfulness of breathing. But maybe I'll just say a few words about it first. What else should I say? Yeah. So we're in the practice. We're just allowing our body to breathe. Well, actually, we don't have to allow it, do we? It just breathes. We don't have to do anything to breathe. So we're not doing any special breathing or anything like that. Our body just breathes. And we're just trying to see if we can get closer and closer to the sensations of the breath. Yeah? And as we do that, we might notice that we get distracted. But we can practice this sort of attentiveness in relation to anything that we might experience as a distraction. So say we hear sounds, you might, where you're meditating might be quite noisy. There might be noise from neighbors or in your household. Just see if you can just experience them as sounds, without going into a whole story of like, oh, I wish they'd be quiet. How can I meditate with this going on? Or wonder what that is. Is that them doing such and such? Just see if you can let go of the story and just hear it as a sound. In that way, you include it in the meditation. Or there might be something that arises in your own mind, a memory or something. Just let that be there, just as a sort of sensation of mind, if you see what I mean. Again, you don't need to, go into a sort of scenario, but we all do that, of course. We go into those scenarios, but see if you can draw back from the scenario. Well, what does it feel like? What's the feeling tone of that memory that's popped up? Oh, it's a bit sad. Okay, I'll just sit with the sadness. Oh, it's really joyful. I'll just sit with that. So anything that comes to us through any of our senses, including the mind, just see if we can practice attentiveness in relation to it, yeah? And just keep doing that again and again and again. So what you sort of come to and you realize you're in a sort of story, and then just come back to the body, back to the breath, and back to this almost sort of bare attention to what's actually happening in the moment. We just practice that again and again and again. This is mindfulness as practice, yeah? Just practice it again and again and again. Doesn't matter really how many times your mind goes away. What matters is the mind training of this practice, yeah? Good. So I hope that makes sense as an instruction of what we're going to do. Maybe just one more thing. How we come back is we come back to the body, because the stories are all out there somewhere. So we just come back to our physical selves, the base of our posture on the chair, our cushions, our feet on the floor, our breath and our body. That's what we anchor back to. That's what gets us back from the story, back to actually awareness of what's happening now, because what's happening in the body is always happening now. Yeah. Good. Okay, so we're going to dim the lights here, and we're going to set up for meditation. We'll be meditating for about 20 minutes and then we'll have tea. So we can just start by closing our eyes. Good. So whatever you're sitting on, whether it's a chair or cushions, just sit in a way that's upright. And really tune into the contact of your body with the cushions or chair and with the floor. You can have your feet flat on the floor if you're on a chair. And just feel as your weight's dropping down, that the rest of your torso is rising up. So your spine rising up in its own natural curves. Your head's just poised. Then see if you can soften your face a little bit more. And see if you can soften your hands a little bit more. Now just start to notice that your body is breathing. Don't need to make any effort to breathe. Body is just breathing all by itself, as it were. All you're doing is paying attention, not thinking about the breath, not a story about the breath. You're attending to how the breath actually feels. And using the breath as an anchor, you can just include everything else into the meditation. Sounds, just letting the sounds just be sounds. Any other physical sensations? Noticing if you're going into any stories. And seeing if you can just come back to the simple, direct sensations. And see if you can do that even with the mind, thoughts or memories that might arise. See if you can just stay with the feeling tone rather than the interpretation, rather than the story. Keep using the breath as your anchor. Keep softening the face. Find your mind's gone away, that's all right. Just coming back to the body, back to the breath, back to what you can experience directly. And then for the last few moments, still sitting still with our eyes closed, just relaxing any efforts we're making. And just sitting, not trying to do anything, not trying not to do anything. And when you're ready, in your own time, just opening your eyes, bringing the meditation to a close. Good, really good, everyone. Well done. So what we're going to do now is have 10-minute chance for you to get a cup of tea. Sorry as ever, we can't offer you tea as we usually would at the Buddhist Centre. Well, I want to go and get a cup of tea, and you feel free to as well. And then we'll come back again at 8:05 for the second half of the class. I'll say a little bit more, but particularly a bit chance for you to ask questions. I think I am a bit late. I think I am a bit late back. I am. I think I said 5 past. It's 7 minutes past. So sorry to be a bit late, everyone. I was enjoying my tea. I hope you were enjoying your tea as well. So welcome back after tea, everyone. I'm just going to say just a few more things about mindfulness, and then it'll be a chance for you to ask questions. And yes, so do think about your questions, and then we'll finish with a short ritual. Oh, actually, oh yeah, there's the ritual book. Okay. So, and first of all, I've got 2 adverts. So one is this book, Mind and Harmony. So this book includes it's a very, very rich book, and all the things I was saying about mindfulness are included in this book, but much, much more. This book is kind of the art of mind watching. And the brilliant thing is that Windhorse Publications are offering the ebook of this book completely free, but you've got to get it before Monday if you want your free book. And Hippolyte's just put in the link for your free ebook of this. I recommend it very, very highly indeed. So that's the first advert. The second, lots of you have been asking about, well, what's next after this retreat? And I'm really, really glad you've been asking what's next after this retreat. And we anticipated that. And so after this retreat, we're going to do a 4-week course called Life with Full Attention. And it's a great course. We often run it at the Buddhist Center here. And the brilliant thing about it is it's geared towards practicing at home in your actual real life. So there's 8 sessions over the 4 weeks, and so you keep being given various things to practice, all perfectly manageable in your ordinary everyday life, and then you get to come back and report back in small groups about how you've been going on with that, and then the leaders, Maitreya Bandha, Dhamma Yodan, will keep on giving, more things to practice and more teaching. So it really builds over the 8 sessions. So it's 8 sessions over 4 weeks. So there'll be 2 sessions a week. And that starts on, let me check, the 2nd of June. And that's free by donation. So yes, sign up for that. And I imagine Hippolyte is putting the link for that as well.
Well, we don't have it yet. It's not up yet.
Oh, it's not up yet, but it's coming. Okay, so you heard it here first. Yeah, that's coming. So they're the 2 things. Okay, so yes, I just want to say a little bit more. I want to talk about the connection of mindfulness and love. I didn't want to not have that included in the evening. And I'm just going to read you that passage again, if you'll indulge me, that I read at the beginning of the class, and I'll tell you where it's from. My eyes are almost burned by what I see. There's a bowl in front of me that wasn't there before. A brown button bowl, and in it some apricots, some oranges, some nuts, cherries, a banana. I'm entranced by colour. I lift an orange into the flat, filthy palm of my hand and feel and smell and lick it. The colour orange, the colour, my God, the colour orange. I will not eat this fruit. I sit in quiet joy, so complete, beyond the meaning of joy. My soul finds its own completeness in that bowl of colour. The forms of each fruit, the shape and curl and bend, so rich, so perfect. I want to bow before it, loving that blazing, roaring orange colour. It is there in that tiny bowl, the world recreated in that broken bowl. I feel the smell of each fruit leaping into me and lifting me and carrying me away. I am drunk with something that I understand but cannot explain. I'm filled with a sense of love. What I have waited and longed for has, without my knowing, come to me and taken all of me. So that passage is from this book, An Evil Cradling, a book that I've read and reread several times. I remember reading it when it first came out. It's the story of, told by Brian Keenan, who was one of the hostages in Beirut back in the 80s. And I just think that is, to me, that's the richness of mindfulness, his response to that bowl of fruit. The sort of backstory is he's captive, he's in a kind of filthy hole, really, and he's given one meal a day, and that meal is usually something like 2 slices of like white bread, and some processed cheese that's kind of shoved through his, through the hole in the door. But then this day something different comes, and that's his response to it. He just gazes at it, and it goes on to say how he gazes at it for days. He never eats it, which is amazing, isn't it? Imagine if you'd only had some old bread and cheese and suddenly you were given fruit. I know if it was me, I'd probably just sort of guzzle it in a way. But he's having such a different response. He's just kind of in love with it. Just the colors just seem so rich and so pure and so vibrant. And yeah, as I say, I think that's what mindfulness is. It isn't a contrived thing. It isn't a sort of code, I am noticing this and now I'm noticing that and I'm really in the moment. It's actually filled with beauty and love. I love that at the end he says, without my knowing, it's what I waited for has come to me and taken all of me. I really like that. It takes you. I just wanted to say something about mindfulness and love, and something about the fact he doesn't eat it. He doesn't eat the fruit. To me, that really says he's got a totally non-utilitarian attitude to it. He's just looking at it for the beauty of it. It's not something to consume in the usual way. So that's how our mindfulness can extend to the natural world, to the beauties of the natural world, but also especially to other people. I think if we give our attention to other people, in a way, we can't help but love them in a way. If you give your full attention to someone, actually love will arise, or something like love. Maybe not love certainly not in the sentimental way, but love in the, metta, really, what we call in Buddhism metta, a well-wishing, a wishing for the best. If you give someone something or someone or any living creature your full attention, then I think it's inevitable that love will arise. I remember drawing a friend. I'm not an artist at all, but we just created a little art scenario class between a few friends, and one of my friends, actually Shraddha Pushpa, who we celebrated in a way her death. She had her death ritual. We didn't celebrate her death. We celebrated her life because she had died last week at the age of 90. And a few years before that, she sort of posed for us to draw her. And I remember, this elderly woman just drawing around the outline of all the folds of her clothes and so on. And by the end of just carefully drawing around her, I just felt so much love, actually. And I felt, it was a result of the attentiveness. So yes, attentiveness will lead to love. And also, we can't love without attentiveness. If we want to be a friend, then we can cultivate attentiveness, because then it's in a way it's the actual person we're responding to, not our fantasy about the person, not our idea. We take them in. The more we can take someone in, the more we can love them. So yes, I just wanted to say those few more words about Before tea, we had 3 different aspects of mindfulness, that sort of vigilance, the continuity of purpose, and then the staying with our direct experience without adding on our interpretive story. And then now I just wanted to say a little bit about mindfulness and love. Good. So now it is time for you to bring forth any questions that you might have, and equally will feed me those questions, and I'll try my best to respond to them. And then we'll end with our ritual.
So we have 170 people with us.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 170 questions there.
We have a few.
We have a few, okay. 170 people, good.
We've got a couple of questions in already. The first one around meditation. Julie is asking, often when I meditate, I feel as though I want to drift into sleep. Should I go with this feeling or wake myself up and become aware again?
Okay. So that I'll just repeat the questions in case we can't all hear. So Julie's saying that often when she meditates, she feels like she wants to just drift into sleep. What to do about that? Should we try and bring more alertness? So the sort of blunt answer is yes. The art there is to bring about more alertness. So meditation, we often talk about as you trying to bring about a state of sort of relaxed attentiveness, yeah? So it's a relaxedness and an alertness, energized calm. So if you find yourself falling asleep, that might feel pleasant. It often can feel quite pleasant, that sort of drifty, dreamy state. But even though it feels pleasant, it isn't meditation. And actually, if you can bring about alertness, there'll be in a way, it'll be more pleasurable. So quite simple things to do if you start to feel yourself a bit drifty or sleepy when you're meditating is just to try and sit a bit more upright, bring more energy into the posture. I try and sometimes if I'm too hot, I feel sleepy, so I take a layer off or open a window. You can even open your eyes, yeah, not in the sense of looking around you, but just it's very difficult to fall asleep with your eyes open. So you can just open your eyes. If you've got a candle on your shrine, then you can look at something bright like a candle flame. So working with the body is very, very good. Basically, usually all the time, we're tending either to slump into sort of sleepiness or to be a bit hyper in our minds, a bit as if we've had too much coffee. If you're more the other way, if you notice your thoughts racing or you feel like you want to move around, then you need to bring more calm. And you can do that through the body. Just feel your weight on the ground. Soften your face, soften your hands. Yeah. So very, very good question. And it highlights those 2 ways of working. You can work with sleepiness by bringing more energy, work with sort of, hyperactivity, as it were, with cultivating more calm. So you cultivate the opposite, and you can do that in the body directly. So thanks for that question. Yeah.
So still around meditation, we have a question on how to deal with noise in meditation.
Okay, yeah, it can. That's a very, very common question, how to deal with noise. I noticed it myself, actually. This shrine room's quite creaky. Because we haven't got so many people in it, the shrine room's quite creaky. Usually I think the people sort of soak up the noise. So sometimes, it's very, very tempting to think that you've got to try and ignore the noise or kind of shut it out in a way to try and meditate. Very, very tempting to think that, but actually much, much better to think more in terms of including it in. And especially in the practice that we're doing there, it's sort of including it in without making a story about it. So we'll tend to make a story of, well, what is it? You know, I mean, I often get, oh my goodness, surely there isn't a mouse in the room. So we'll either get a story of what is it, or I wish it would stop, or I can't meditate with this going on. That's all stories, actually. We all do it. I do it myself. But the art is to just see, can we experience sound as sound? Well, then it's quite mysterious, isn't it? What is it? We'll notice that what we're calling a noise or an annoying noise actually is just a sort of continuum of sound, and we can even get interested in it. We'll notice that actually it'll get a bit louder, a bit quieter. We'll also notice our own awareness of it will come and go. And we can notice that as well. And actually, if you can do that, something quite different can happen. Something completely new can open up. Almost a new dimension of mind can open up. And that comes about not by trying to ignore it or push it away. If we try and ignore it or push it away, then we're just in a fight with our own experience, and that creates more agitation. But if we include it in that way, and just letting the sound be sound, notice the fluctuations, etc., then something quite different can happen. And we can do that with anything. We can do that with physical sensations, especially discomfort and pain. And we can do that with emotional sensations, like emotional pain. We can sort of retract from the story about it. And that really is that's the whole art of meditation. So sound is actually quite a good one to practice with, because there usually is some sound or other. And that it actually gives us something to get interested in. I don't mean interested in sort of going off in a fantasy about it, but just more interested in that direct experience way. Yeah, so good. Thank you, whoever brought that up. Yeah.
So still along those lines, Thomas is asking, how can one be mindful of thoughts and memories and ideas as they arise without getting caught in them?
Well, yeah, how can we get rise in thoughts and memories and ideas as they arise without getting caught in them? Well, that's again the art. We tend to get caught in them, but what we could do is we come back. Every thought, we come back to the direct sensation. So even things that are going on in our mind, like thoughts, memories, and ideas, they'll all have a physical counterpart. Come back, find where the physical counterpart is. It's maybe in the heart center, or I don't know, there might be a certain sort of tension accompanying that, like a sort of squeezing. Come back to that and feel that in the body. Yeah, so then you're coming back to something more direct. And then what will happen is the next minute you'll come to and you're off in it again. You just sort of wake up, as it were, and think, oh, like I'm off in that scenario again. And just keep coming back and come back to the body. Yeah, and the sort of, I hope that makes sense, the sort of physical counterpart of that in the physical body, but almost in the sort of inner physical body. Like when I was meditating there, I was going over something like slightly upsetting that happened just before the meditation. I noticed myself going, oh God, I messed that up, da-da-da. And then every time I noticed myself going off to that, I came back and actually it felt just quite tender in my heart. And in a way, I just tried to practice just staying with that, it's almost a sort of poignant, tender feeling in the heart, which is much more direct than the scenario of. The scenarios usually, well, for me anyway, are either getting annoyed with someone else or getting annoyed with myself and ricocheting between those, for example. But then if you come back to the just direct experience, then that just cuts through that. Same with bright ideas, just come back to the direct experience. So I hope that's helpful. Again, it's a real art. And again, it's practice with that. Yeah.
So we've got a few more questions. Still on meditation.
Good.
Mircea is saying that she sometimes gets slightly angry with herself when she notices that she's got distracted. So she wonders whether you have any tips for a more gentle way of coming back.
Yes. So that's a question about when we get annoyed with ourselves, or when we've noticed we've been distracted. That's really common, isn't it? It's a sort of impatience. And then that just makes another, then we just add layer to layer. Yes, and then how do we have a more sort of gentle way of coming back? I mean, one thing I find that helps is as soon as we notice that we've been distracted, in a sense, we're already back in awareness, yeah? So it's like, well, how I experience it is I sort of come to, and I'm sort of, I realize I've lost track of the breath or something, but that coming to itself is sort of being back. So in a certain sense, we don't need to worry about coming back. We're already back in awareness. And then I think probably is just learning to sort of resist, sort of scolding ourselves, perhaps enjoying the sensation of being back in mindfulness. Mindfulness is enjoyable, is pleasurable. So when we sort of, that moment of coming to, see if we can connect with the pleasure in that. And that might help in, stopping us going off in the track of sort of scolding or getting annoyed or whatever. Yeah, but it's not uncommon for that, but it's definitely not helpful, as I think the person who asked the question realized. Yeah.
So Nina is asking whether you could talk a bit more about the tension, if there is any, between vigilance and spontaneity.
The tension between vigilance and spontaneity. Okay, so that's a good question. So yes, that's an art. Again, it's probably an art, isn't it? Because you don't want to be so, maybe, let me think. Okay, maybe that's where it's good to think about what we're trying to have as the least amount of drunkenness, because drunkenness isn't the same as spontaneity. So drunkenness is a kind of, is not being aware, whereas one can be spontaneous, playful, and be completely aware. So maybe that metaphor of drunkenness might help. That all we're trying to do is not be intoxicated. Actually, I know another way to talk about it. Actually, I talked about this before, which is a teaching I heard many years ago called the broad band of awareness. Yeah, so the right position for the camera. So awareness. So if you think of awareness as between my both hands, yeah. So what we tend to do is either spin off the top, and that's where we spin into intoxication or drunkenness, lose awareness upwards, or we drop off the bottom into despondency, despair, and so on. So it can be tempting to think, if we're feeling very high-spirited and spontaneous, we can get a bit, think, oh goodness, it's going to all end in tears. I've got to sort of pull myself back down into this broad band. But that can feel, I think that's what Nina's getting at, that can feel a bit cramped. So instead of that, you could think of expanding awareness, yeah, to then be, to include this sort of high spirits or the low spirits, actually. You can expand awareness, and then you're sort of safe, as it were. Then you're not going to get lost in intoxication. So you're trying to make your awareness bigger, so that it can include one's high spirits, one's low spirits. That can all be included in awareness, and then it's not a problem. It's all within awareness rather than having spun out of awareness into sort of drunkenness, intoxication, or fallen off into sort of despondency, despair. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Anna has a question around mindfulness again. She's asking, is there a link between attentiveness and curiosity? And is it useful to follow that route of curiosity in meditation and our daily life?
Okay. So curiosity, a question about curiosity, is it useful to follow that? Yes, I would say. Curiosity is a great attitude to have in meditation. I think perhaps it might be useful to distinguish between curiosity and, I don't know, sort of whimsy or fancy or something. So curiosity doesn't mean, I don't know, just sort of, losing oneself and just following every single little thing that happens. But it's more like a curious attitude. A curious attitude is very, very good. And again, we can bring that to bear on, for whatever we're feeling. Say where I'm feeling even some physical pain, like I might be feeling, I don't know, a sore shoulder or something. Instead of just sort of labeling it rather lumpily, sore shoulder, you could get curious. You think, oh, what is that feeling I'm calling sore shoulder? Where does it start and end? Is it coming and going? What's it actually like? So you can be curious like that. So I think it's a very good quality to have in meditation and life, just as you might with a friend. If you met a friend and your friend said, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit sad or something," you wouldn't. Hopefully, if you were a good friend, you wouldn't immediately think you knew what they felt like. You'd say, "Oh, you might ask them a few questions. Might you, how long you've been feeling that, or what's it like?" You'd kind of gently inquire, wouldn't you? And I think that's sort of curiosity. And I think that's a very positive thing to have in life. You can have it towards yourself, towards friends, towards what's going on in meditation and going on more generally. Yeah, good.
So still outside of meditation, Anna asks whether you have any insights in dealing with the inattentiveness of others.
What do we do about the inattentiveness of others? Yes, other people are very annoying, aren't they? They do all sorts of unskillful things. So what can we do? Somebody asked a question a bit like this the other night, very, very common. Well, basically, I think what not to do is succumb to getting annoyed with them. Very easy to get annoyed, very easy to get self-righteous. But if we do that, then in a way we've just, fallen into unhelpful things ourselves. Yeah. I think probably the best thing we can do is try and cultivate patience, especially if we are a bit prone to being irritated with other people, which I am. So if other people are being inattentive or whatever else, other annoying thing they might be doing, watch out for getting into a state of irritation or self-righteousness in regard to them. Of course, ideally, if we were a Buddha, we'd be feeling love and compassion to all beings all the time, but that might be too big a step. So I think an intermediary step is patience, and understanding. Try and imaginatively engage with, well, what circumstances might be making them like that? What conditioning have they come from? So, even if we don't know them, we can sort of imaginatively identify with them. And that's what I mean by patience, yeah. So I'm afraid it's down to us to cultivate patience. We really can't do much about other people's behavior. But what we can always work with our own responses, which is challenging, I know, Anna. Yeah.
So back to meditation.
Yeah.
Danny asks whether the deepening of mindfulness on its own can lead to the arising of insight, or do we always need to bring some reflections for insight to arise?
Okay, so can the deepening of mindfulness on its own result in insight, or do we need to bring in some reflections? So classically, we would bring in some reflection. So insight is another word for wisdom, really. So the classic Buddhist teaching is that we cultivate a base of mindfulness in order to reflect more deeply on the existential matters of life. To reflect more deeply on the facts such as that all things are impermanent, that there's nothing substantial and unchanging, including ourselves. And classically, in order to be able to sort of sustain that sort of reflection, we need some sort of mindfulness and positivity. Other words, there's no sort of soil for those reflections to grow in. So classically, that's the way around it. We'd cultivate mindfulness and positive emotion and then bring in some of those reflections. At the same time, those reflections themselves can be an aid to mindfulness. Bringing in a reflection like that, like all things are impermanent, can have the effect of focusing the mind. Traditionally, mindfulness on its own isn't enough. It's bringing in a reflection, but the mindfulness of breathing practice can contain those reflections very, very simply. You can see, well, the breath is impermanent. This thing I'm calling the breath is just simply a flow of sensations. That is a wisdom reflection. Seeing that the breath, I don't own it. This thing, it feels like mine. It feels, intuitive, like it's mine, but I didn't create it. I didn't make it start. I'm not going to be able to control when it stops one day. That's an insight reflection that we can actually, in the mindfulness of breathing, we could, if we feel that where our mind's quite settled, we could bring in that reflection. It's not even a thought or reflection, it's actually experiencing the impermanence of the breath, experiencing the non-ownership of the breath. They are wisdom reflections. I would say, well, if you feel relatively concentrated, take the opportunity to bring in those reflections.
We have another question from Richie, still around meditation, I guess. What are your advice to handle fear? He says he often has fear come up when starting a retreat, especially.
Okay, so that's a question about fear and fear coming up, especially starting a retreat. So thanks for bringing in that question, Richie. So it's not uncommon to have the fear might come up in meditation, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit myself. I think fear can come up because when we're meditating, or especially when we're on retreat, we're going into realms that are unfamiliar and unknown, because we're expanding our mind. Expansion necessarily means going into the unknown, into the unfamiliar. We can only expand into the unknown, and that can be disconcerting, and even bring about fear and unease. What I've been trying to do, if I notice that sort of fear and unease, is realize that at the same time as that fear arising, there's also arising at the same time, how to put this? Well, just that new experience, that the fear is arising because something new is occurring. So it's almost like, I hope I'm going to be able to explain this on the camera. It's almost like I'm turning my head to focus on the fear, but I could almost turn my head this other way and think, oh, actually, it's a new experience and there's a freedom in that new experience. So I could turn my head to feel the sense of freedom or the sense of truth instead, yeah? So I don't know, I'm sure Richie isn't here, I can ask him if that makes sense, but maybe try that out. The next time you feel fear, you might just see that there something else happening? Is there some newness, some sense of freedom, some sense of sort of new territory that you're verging into? And could you sort of dwell with that and see if that helps? If it doesn't, come back and ask the question again. But maybe also it's just helpful to see that is why the fear's arising. It's because you're going into new areas. And also maybe just have the confidence that on the whole, that those going into new areas arise at the time when we're ready for them. So you can take confidence in that. Yeah. Probably time for one more.
One more, great. Raquel finds herself often crying in meditation, mainly out of the feeling of gratitude for being surrounded by beauty. She's wondering whether that's okay, because crying seems not to resonate with equanimity.
Okay. So that's a question about crying. Crying sounds like with joy and gratitude. I think that's fine, actually. In a way, feelings just want to be felt, so we can just let feelings wash through us. And I think the question was related to, well, is that different from equanimity? I think equanimity is an aim, but we don't get to equanimity by, I don't know, curtailing ourselves and making ourselves smaller. It's almost we get to equanimity by just allowing ourselves to become bigger and bigger. So sort of traditionally, again, in the deeper levels of meditation, there's a level where we might feel quite a lot of emotion that might be expressed in tears, or even our hair standing on end, or even levitation. So I'm told, it never happened to me. But actually, then even that calms down. But it's almost like it doesn't calm down by getting smaller. It calms down because we get bigger. So it creates less of a ripple. So the tears, even the hair standing on end, even the rapture, just calms because something even bigger starts to happen. The image I used before, I used this a couple of nights ago, but it's worth saying again, is of the elephant on the pool. So if an elephant jumps into a little pond, it makes a huge splash. But if an elephant jumps into the ocean, then there's barely a ripple. So the elephant, I guess, is all our emotions and so on. So we're trying to become like the ocean, so that, we're sort of so big that the even strong emotions hardly make a ripple. And that's what equanimity is. Equanimity isn't gained by kind of going, no, I mustn't cry, I must try and be equanimous. It comes through, becoming big. So just trust that will happen. That bigness will just happen. Just allow the feelings to be felt. Good. So they were very, very good questions. So we're going to wind up on the questions there. So sorry I didn't manage to get to them all. But we've still got lots of the retreat to go. So do just keep showing up for the retreat. Retreats go through phases, and a week's retreat is quite a long retreat. So whatever is going on, whether you're feeling blissfully happy, whether more difficult emotions are getting stirred up, whether you're feeling, I don't know, it's all a bit humdrum, whatever, just keep showing up, because it always goes through phases, and you have your internal phases, and you don't know what's around the corner, actually. So just keep showing up. Show up tomorrow morning. Come to things during the day if you can. And especially keep tuning in to the evenings as well. I've actually lost track of what day it is and what's happening. Tomorrow evening is Maitreya Bandha, talking about with wisdom's on Friday. I know that. Life, the meaning, the Buddhist meaning of life, that's tomorrow. Yeah, so you better not miss that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do an end with our ritual. So set yourself up in meditation again. This ritual's in call and response. We're going to start with a reading. And the reading is an ancient text, the Dhammapada, and Sanjay is going to read us that. And then I'll say the verses, and Sanjay and Ipali will be responding here. And really, really encourage you to join in with the response. If you've got your own shrine by now, you could actually look at your shrine during the ritual. And there'll be a mantra at the end. We'll be making offerings. You might want to even offer some incense to your shrine or bow before your shrine. And then at the end, we'll just end in silence, and then Ipalit and Sanjay will just extinguish the candles and we'll turn the lights down, and that'll be the end. And really, really encourage you to have a quiet evening after that. Maybe you could go with lovely night here in London. You could go for a nighttime walk. You could just, have a quiet evening. I would really, really strongly say don't go back onto any technology or anything like that this evening. And then that will really set you up for the morning meditation tomorrow. Okay, good. So let's set ourselves up. I'll just get my page before reading. Okay, so taking a moment to settle, and then whenever Sanjay thinks the time's right, we'll have the reading.
Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows, even as the cart wheel follows the hoof of the ox drawing the cart. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows, like a shadow that never departs. Those who entertain such thoughts as they abused me, they beat me, they conquered me, they robbed me, will not still their hatred. Those who do not entertain such thoughts as they abused me, they beat me, they conquered me, they robbed me, will still their hatred. Not by hatred are hatreds ever pacified here in the world. They are pacified by love. This is the eternal law. Others do not realize that we are all heading for death. Those who realize it will compose their quarrels.
The threefold puja. Opening reverence. We We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha,
The perfectly enlightened one.
the perfectly enlightened one,
The shower of the way.
the shower of the way.
We reverence the Dharma.
We reverence the Dharma,
The teaching of the Buddha.
the teaching of the Buddha,
Which leads from darkness to light.
which leads from darkness to light.
We reverence the Sangha.
We reverence the Sangha,
The fellowship of the Buddha's disciples.
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
That inspires and guides.
that inspires and guides.
Reverence to the three jewels. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha
And aspire to follow him.
and aspire to follow him.
The Buddha was born.
The Buddha was born
As we are born.
as we are born.
What the Buddha overcame.
What the Buddha overcame,
We too can overcome.
we too can overcome.
What the Buddha attained.
What the Buddha attained,
We too can attain.
we too can attain.
We reverence the Dharma.
We reverence the Dharma
And aspire to follow it.
and aspire to follow it
With body, speech and mind.
with body, speech, and mind
Until the end.
until the end.
The truth in all its aspects.
The truth in all its aspects,
The path in all its stages.
the path in all its stages.
We aspire to study,
We aspire to study,
practice,
practice,
realize.
realize.
We reverence the Sangha
We reverence the Sangha
and aspire to follow it.
and aspire to follow it.
The fellowship of those
The fellowship of those
who tread the way.
who tread the way,
As one by one,
as one by one,
we make our own commitment.
we make our own commitments.
An ever-widening circle.
An ever-widening circle,
The Sangha grows.
the Sangha grows.
Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer flowers.
we offer flowers,
Flowers that today
flowers that today
are fresh and sweetly blooming.
are fresh and sweetly blooming,
Flowers that tomorrow
flowers that tomorrow
are faded and fallen.
are faded and fallen.
Our bodies too, like flowers,
Our bodies too, like flowers,
will pass away.
will pass away.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer candles
we offer candles.
to him who is the light.
To him who is the light,
We offer light
we offer light.
from his greater lamp.
From his greater lamp,
A lesser lamp we light within us.
a lesser lamp will light within us.
The lamp of Bodhi shining
The lamp of Bodhi shining
within our hearts.
within our hearts.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer incense.
we offer incense.
Incense whose fragrance
Incense whose fragrance
pervades the air.
pervades the air.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
The fragrance of the perfect life,
Sweeter than incense.
sweeter than incense,
Spreads in all directions.
spreads in all directions
Throughout the world.
throughout the world.
Om Mani Mani Mahamani Shakyamuni Swaha Om Mani Mani Mahamani Shakyamuni Swaha Om Mani Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni 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 Shakyamuni Swaha Okay, good. So, really, the end of our evening now. But I'll say it now. Just to really invite you, if you feel so moved, to contribute to our retreat. The whole retreat's just basically made out of everyone contributing, from all our volunteers on the team and all our helpers, and you've all been contributing as well. Thank you very much. And you contributed by participating, but also by giving us the £100 donation that we're asking if you'd consider. So For all those of you who have done that, or given anything, thank you so much. And if you'd still like to do that, there's still time, of course, and that would be really, really welcome. So thank you.